Hi, sorry it's been a while. Welcome to my spear campaign. There's been a lot going on and a lot to process, so I've just been trying to do that mostly offline. I don't really use social media or anything outside of this, so I've mostly been stress crafting a lot of diamond art. So much diamond art, and I'm not really sure how my reach is as far as it is when my analytics aren't reflecting that. So I think it's got something to do with the smear campaign that I've been talking about, but you know, just gotta deal with it, is what I've been told. So it is what it is, I guess. But the thing about my smear campaign and everything that's ensued as a result of it, a lot of it had to do with people perceiving my beliefs as different from theirs, whether or not it was true in any given case. So I've been thinking a lot about Charlie Kirk and what happened to him and the string of everything that's just kind of happened. And I think we need to talk about it because this isn't right. I said in a previous episode that one thing I love is a good debate, and that's one thing I really admired about Charlie and respected about him. Whether or not I personally agreed with whatever he was talking about, I did agree with some of it, I just didn't agree with all of it. But I'm a firm believer in being able to agree to disagree and to have healthy, constructive conversations where it's an open dialogue. So, not every opposite opinion has to be a personal attack, and nothing has to come to violence like this. So, I've been thinking a lot about that because I just think there's been so much senseless violence lately, and it's not something that I condone, and I'm always looking for a peaceful approach. That's why I've been trying to use this channel to present multiple perspectives and more empathy for seeing other sides of the conversation, because as I've said previously, just because you aren't totally for something doesn't mean you're totally anti either. And I think that's something that we forget. And I find that really funny because we say so many things are on a spectrum now. But when it comes to what we believe, the spectrum doesn't seem to apply. And I find that so weird because there are so many variations of everything. And again, it's shaped by perspective, which is shaped by life experience. So I think that we need to talk about these things more. I have a smear campaign, I have a stalking situation, and the thing about being the living proof is that there are people that don't want you to be. And I've been coming to terms with that. I've also been having some health issues that I was trying to wrap my head around as well. So I've just kind of been laying low. But when that happened, all I can think of was he was a rational voice who got people thinking, and he put his life on the line even though he was a husband and a father. And what's my excuse, you know? So here I am, and we're gonna play Hide in Your Shell by Supertramp because I think that it's a really great song, and I think some of it is reflective of how I've been feeling. Some of it is reflective of what I see going on in the world. And one of the members of Supertramp actually passed away recently as well. And it's my favorite Supertramp song of all time. It is 7 minutes though, so I'm not going to play it very many times. I'm not even sure if I'm going to get a clean run through out of it. There is a whole lot going on here. And I did do a dry run through. Some of it is easy, like some parts of it are easy, but I think it's just going to be the moving around and doing it quick. I've been wanting to do a Supertramp song for a while, but They're hard. And this is just a simplified version, so it's not the real chords that it would be because they use chords that are like 7 notes in one. And I'm listening to the song and you can tell like this is someone that is super technical, like a really, really good piano player. And I'm just not going to do it justice, but I love this song and I think it's a really good opportunity to talk about some of the things that are important to talk about right now. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm just going to play it in grand piano. I do think it would sound really good in a synth because it is pretty synthy. Everything Supertramp does kind of is. So just going to give it a go and come along for the ride. So much has happened since the last episode that I really don't even know where to start with this one. I guess I'll add the disclaimer that this is just me learning how to play songs that I like on the keyboard. Sometimes I randomly sing my favorite parts of the song or the most pertinent to the topic of discussion. In your shell, 'cause the world is out to bleed you for a ride. What will you gain to making your life a little longer? Heaven or hell? Was the journey cold that gave you eyes of steel? Now, I do understand how there's confusion on that, but I will keep referring back to the smear campaign. Believe what you want to believe doesn't make me that person. But for context, in the last 3 years, it's become standard practice for those around me to tell me the things that I see, hear, and experienced haven't happened to me, or that they did, but I've misinterpreted it. And I'd really love to have a conversation with someone who's not trying to hit the same talking points about the same things that I'm not actually interested in. Just let me know. Let me show you the nearest signpost. Get your heart back up on the road. Now, I'm not saying I never misinterpret anything, but if you're going to play in my face and insult my intelligence repeatedly, I will absolutely call you out. My newest mantra is, your unwillingness to take accountability is not my delusion. Never let yourself go. Hold myself down. Hold yourself down. Hold yourself down. That's pretty good, though. I almost made it all the way through. We're at 6 minutes. All right, let's try this again. We're getting there. One thing I can assure you is I'm in no way trying to take your mind or your free will. I know what it feels like because it's being done to me, but I am trying to help you keep your mind intact. In all honesty, I didn't know what I stepped into when I stepped into it, and I feel a lot like a pawn. To be fair, part of why I created this platform is so people like me didn't have to become scapegoats just because they were misunderstood. So even though I am pretty scared, I do feel responsible to speak up in some capacity. There's a large reason why the Charlie Kirk assassination has affected me so much. To happen at all was terrifying enough, but the celebrations of it are actually appalling. Over what? Differing beliefs that he would have been open to discussing with you? It's just absolute insanity to me. And maybe I'm overly sensitive about it because I've been watching some of the Jubilee debates lately, and I use the term debate loosely. And I feel like this was entirely preventable. Like in the Jubilee debates, the amount of smugness and lack of respect to the point where they're not even letting the other party finish a full sentence. You got demons in your closet, and you're screaming out to stop it. Saying life's begun to cheat you, friends are out to beat you. Grab onto what you can scramble for. And it's just yelling and it's name calling. These aren't conversations. There's no constructiveness to it. There's no attempt to find a common ground or a good solution forward. It feels like everything's at an impasse. But I also believe that you shouldn't take a stance on things that you can't defend outside of talking points. And I can say that from experience because I was once young, standing on talking points too, and then I got some life experience. Or if you have to try to force a narrative to make it fit, maybe it's time to consider a different perspective. It's easy for the real problems to be overlooked in situations like this when they come out of the States because it often becomes an argument about gun safety. But I believe it's more about pent up negative energy with nowhere to go, in the non religious terms at least. The divide that is now very clearly visible has been happening. It's not all that different than what's been happening in the UK and Canada and increasing in other places around the world. And although there is one very glaring differentiator, the actual root issues are the same. The tools are just different. In Canada, if someone disagrees with you or even just falsely mislabels something, the dedication and effort they will put into ruthlessly harassing and destroying every aspect of your life makes you kind of wish they could just outright get it over with instead of a slow psychological torture and deterioration. The most accurate description I've heard of what it's like is living in an open air insane asylum. Still better than an actual one, but not in the sense that you're told all of these people are supposedly sane, and that you're probably the crazy one if you think otherwise. I've generally lived my life avoiding violence at all costs, and I've often put myself at risk to take a more peaceful approach. As a boy, I believed the saying, the cure for pain was love. The reality of the situation is my predicament would have looked a lot different if I hadn't approached it with love. And from a place of truly trying to make a positive change. You know, it's like the whole leave the place better than you found it kind of thing. I try to show empathy, grace, compassion, and understanding, and I always try to handle things better than I would have previously, and listen to other perspectives to gain a better overall understanding. The majority of my life, I would have told you I didn't understand the obsession with the right to bear arms and why it was deemed so critically constitutional. But when the law and the criminals are the only ones who have weapons, and your life is in danger, and you see them cruising together. Hold on, let me do it on a dry run through. It makes you reconsider your perspective based on your evolving life experience. Most self-defense weapons are illegal here, and recently the police went on TV and said comply with home invaders, which never used to be something that you had to worry about either. So there's a duality to all of it. So there's a lot of animosity, and to be law abiding shouldn't mean having to not be protected. That just shouldn't be something that you have to compromise. I don't have anything against different races, immigration, or refugees, LGBTs, or people with differing beliefs. But I also believe in moderation, guidelines, and fair treatment. You want to be a productive, contributing member of society and make a better life than you would have had? All for it. I just think that the same standards, rights, comparably funded resources, benefit of the doubt, and right to maintain and express their personal beliefs, free speech, and values without persecution should still apply to those who were born here and may not fit in any of those groups. Was this not like the whole main selling feature? And it's a pretty helpless feeling knowing that you're not an actual criminal but can be persecuted because one or multiple actual ones decide that they don't want to identify as such by using your identity. Victims get charged or put on public display for humiliation here. Again, the UK can corroborate that this isn't an isolated thing. Now you've got a bunch of broken people getting confused from what they've been through, a system that's been bought out for clout, and not enough rational or critical thinking skills to understand that there are better ways to try to fix these problems without resorting to violence. This is why it's important to have a healthy and productive hobby or outlet that focuses on something more positive, because part of it, too, is what you consume. And a lot of it is in the media too. And even as I've been trying to find the right song to talk through what's been going on in the world, I find it difficult to find one without a reference to that kind of thing, even if it is a metaphor. And it kind of makes it feel inappropriate for the moment. And I personally talk a lot using metaphors, similes, and references because my mind functions differently, and it's helped bridge gaps of misunderstanding when I was trying to explain myself or find common ground with others. There are not always literal connotations to it. Many concepts can be used in various applications. Does creativity and imagination still exist in the world of AI? The things I wonder. So, in my opinion, considering the uses in a variety of contexts can help expand our viewpoint and perspective so that we can make more informed decisions. It also helps find more efficiency by incorporating things that already exist. However, the way I talk can also be misinterpreted and often is. I attribute a lot of it to people just being mad about everything and losing their sense of humor mostly, but also now everything seems to be taken too literally, which I think has a lot to do with method of consumption and sensationalism, but it's also left a lot of metaphors and similes and references open for misinterpretation, and that's why having healthy open discussion is so important, because at least that way you're able to get clarity. For example, I'm a radio kid. Radio as a medium came before TV. Because there were no visuals at the time to accompany the audio, it had to be descriptive to effectively help the listener visualize the story and the scene of the story or whatever they were listening to. That's not required anymore because, like, even a podcast would generally have an accompanying video now. So I find there's a lot of misunderstanding what I'm actually saying because there's pulling out the most polarizing keywords and running with it, even if it's way off base. And because we're in the smart stupid age, everything appears to be perceived as a manipulation tactic rather than trying to convey the visual, which often leads to entirely missing the point in the first place. I don't know, maybe it's my ability to communicate, but sometimes I feel like I'm speaking an entirely different language. And while for the most part I've stopped trying to prove myself to people committed to misunderstanding me, again because I know who I am and my intentions, and my life has been in danger because of it. And the perception of me has been warped so badly that not only have people happily joined in on the subhuman treatment, they can't see how truly sick what they're doing is. Or, even worse, they do. And I'm not going to lie, I'm scared with where we're at. For the last 3 years, I've watched many around me change and say it's me. The more I've persevered, the more I've seen those around me become consumed. How they talk, act, look. It's been like living in a zombie movie. But they call me a schizo because I've been warning of spiritual war and the importance of energetic protection. This would be the time to get out your tinfoil hat or handkerchief. I do think a lot of what's been going on is that people are getting demonically possessed. It wasn't until recently I truly realized what it is and how it happens, because we don't really realize how we open ourselves up to that. We think about it in a very antiquated way, and I think there's a lot of new ways to allow those kind of energies in that we're just not seeing. I also think that because of how situations like these have been previously framed up, they're seen as something that just happens at random or to a specific group of people, maybe tied to a location, but aren't preventable.
and I think they are preventable. Now, these are purely tinfoil handkerchief theories of mine, and I'm not certified, so this is not a professional or scientific opinion, though not for lack of trying to gain access to the money made in my name so that I can go back to school so that I can speak from an academic perspective, but just hear me out. I've hypothesized before that I think certain things that are considered mental illness are actually differences in sensory perception. I'll reiterate that I'm not schizophrenic, but here's why a lot of people have that impression. The more I thought about it, the more I got hung up on one question. What is the difference between a schizophrenic and a medium if both are communicating with things beyond our perception? The conclusion I drew was it's the filter, vibrational boundaries. I'm going to use the soul as a very generalized blanket term here, but there is much more depth to it than that. But essentially, we are energy, and that's what our soul is. So think of it like in science, atoms vibrate, and they can vibrate slower or faster depending on stimulus or environment. It's a similar concept to the soul. Higher vibration will attract higher vibrational energies to it, lower ones will do the opposite. Without a filter of discernment, which helps transmute energy so your vibration is aligned and maintained at a higher level. When I say vibrations, that means other energies and entities as well. That can help you or be to your detriment depending on how you attune your vibration. On the extreme low end, it looks like possession. On the higher end, it's spiritual protection and ancestral or energetic support. But to clarify, even if you call on ancestral support in a low vibration, it would be low vibrational ancestors that would answer that call. You attract to the level that you're at. But if you're lucky, you'll have some higher vibrational ancestors that are happy to pull you out of the dirt too, if they see that you're willing to do the work. Now, I know many of us have become accustomed to equating sad with low vibing, and in many respects, that can be true. But there are many lower vibrational things we participate in and consume on a regular basis aside from just that. Also, it's important to remember that God and the devil have the same favorites. You choose which one of them you turn to. And before you misdirect your accusations about what you think I'm doing, maybe ask how many songs lately have thrown in a turn up the heat or a breathlessly panted ad lib of heat. So, am I the asshole or am I just poor and isolated? Think of it this way. Do you love the drama? Do you want the tea? If there was a scorecard, that would be minus 10 vibes. That unnecessary morning shed, the doom scrolling, ignoring what's right and wrong over perceived political correctness, celebrating someone's senseless death and calling for more. Does that sound like high vibing behavior to you? I guess the point I'm really trying to make is that even though there's been a heavy focus that only certain people are susceptible, the higher the risk to those who think they aren't, especially if they're emphatically engaging in low vibrational stuff. The farther you go, the harder it is to come back. I know that there are misconceptions about my spiritual practices, and I'm okay with that because I believe spirituality should be a personal thing for each individual. And we can debate all day about what that means to people, but you also can't tell me that I don't have a relationship with God because I don't practice the way that you would. So let me clear something up. I'm not a witch and have far too much residual Catholic guilt to be the devil. I don't do blood sacrifices or spell work. I have a relationship with God and practice energetic alignment and personal spiritual protection. Spiritual self-defense, if you will. You need to heal and you need to raise yourself to a vibration that will attract what you are looking to attract in life. But in order to do that, you have to put in some work as well. You can't bypass the hard part. You've heard the saying, karma's only a bitch if you are. That's why I think the most important practice aside from prayer is what's called a return to sender. It's essentially create an energetic force field. It limits the impact of negative energy that gets in, and what can't get in will bounce back. With strong energetic boundaries, the only harm that ends up being done is to the original sender. The consequence is usually the same as the original intention or intended feeling sent. I can't help but wonder if this was more of a common practice, if there would be more thinking before doing. It's essentially the real life incarnation of do unto others as you would want done to you, and that God sees true intentions. Continue to move with love, live a life of truth, shine in rational authenticity, and be open to dialogue will help keep your spiritual protection up. Fear and hate detonates. Love and peace deactivates. Free will is being able to choose which path you take. That's why it's important to recognize that every day we're faced with little forks in the road that offer an opportunity of choice. Who we ultimately choose to be is an accumulative result of decisions we make at every one of those forks. So believe any narrative about me that you want, even if you think I'm a demon who can control the weather. Because at my way in with Ma'at, my heart's going to be as light as a feather.
Okay, so for the most part, I can get to about close to 6 minutes into the song, and then it goes into sort of like an instrumental and some ad libs, and it kind of gets weird from there. I I do want to continue to practice it, but I'm happy with where I got with it tonight. It's a lot of fun. It moves really quick. There's a lot of chord changes. There is a lot to keep up on, but it's really fun and it's really just important to have a positive, healthy outlet to be able to channel your energy through. And for me, I find it to be things that are creative and things that are artistic, things that are musical. Not that I am good at any of these things, but it helps get rid of the excess energy, especially if you are stressed and you're not feeling great and you're confused and sometimes you just want to get a little introspective and do your own thing. Just don't stay in that space. Again, it's important to have a healthy, positive outlet so that you're able to transmute any negative energy. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and until next time, keep the peace and keep rocking.